Welcome in, Big Blue Nation, to another episode of the Cats Talk podcast. I'm your host, Cameron Johnston, joined by my co-host, as always, Jacob Boyers. Jacob, Cats won. Really, we laid it out for everybody. Nothing that this team could do against North Carolina Central was going to make us feel any better going into the game against Indiana. But that being said, they did win 103-67 over North Carolina Central on Tuesday night. Jacob, just overall takeaways, because even though this was a game that you expected to win by a lot, I think the spread was 45. There was still a lot of storylines that come out of this one.
Yeah, nothing that they could have done, like you said, would have made us feel any better or worse probably about the season in total. But I think everything we kind of said we wanted to see from them, you kind of saw. They shot the ball a little better. Yeah, Trent Noah making some shots. Otega shot the three ball pretty well. And then the big story and thing that we talked about we wanted to see, Mark Pope played the guys that gave effort and played hard. If you weren't playing hard, you weren't playing, and that was obviously imminent with the Brandon Garrison thing. And then just in general, like Trent Noah, I think, has been a guy that we've been pretty disappointed with, and we've talked about at times that, I've mentioned the fact that he's gone out there and almost had games where he's put up zero stats and he's not making any shots. And, we've been pretty critical, but he comes out and gives a lot of effort, and you play him a whole bunch of minutes, and I'm perfectly fine with it. I think you saw kind of just what we wanted to see. Play the five guys that are going to play the hardest at any given time and roll with it.
Yeah, and that being said, we still had points and lapses in this game for multiple guys that I think go a little bit unnoticed. I think even we're going to mention Otega. Obviously, this is probably his best game of the season, I think, without a doubt, offensively and defensively. I mean, even he had lapses in this game that the effort wasn't at full strength, but for majority of his minutes, this was the Otega that I think you and I both wanted to see take that step up from last year. And you mentioned, the three-point shooting from Otega. How nice is it to see a guy get just an open look in general and be able to knock it down? And Otega did that 3 of 4 from the three-point line.
Yeah, nice to see Otega shoot well. I agree with you. I thought it was his best game. We're finally starting to kind of get that little string together with him, right? We saw North Carolina. He played decent, I guess, against Gonzaga in a game where nobody really played well. And then to come out and have his best game by far of the season again. I understand it's NC Central, and you're probably not going to take a whole lot away from it, and you take everything kind of with a grain of salt. But I thought he was really good. I thought, there were maybe a couple times where he kind of lapsed and didn't have the best effort, but I also think he did the things that you kind of want to see him do. And I do think even he had a couple energy plays on the defensive side, and then it was nice just to, you haven't seen him do really this even against the bad teams. And these are the kind of games where he should just be able to kind of put his head down and get to the rim. And earlier in the season, it felt like he had no interest in doing that no matter who the opponent was. So I was happy to see him do it against this team.
Yeah, I think this is the first time that we've seen him this year where you're like, oh, that's the best player on the floor, no matter who the opponent is. Even in some of those games early in the season when we were playing teams like NC Central, he still didn't necessarily foot that bill. But the part that I think I liked the most was the 4 steals and then the 7 rebounds. Like, I think Otega is going to get his points regardless. But these are where I think those 12-point games that he's normally having, or that he's been having so far this season, turn into these 21-point outings where you see him go 9 of 12. He gets those easy transition buckets. And then you see it when he hits the glass. How about that putback dunk that he had with the offensive rebound? When you see him doing things like that, that's what gets me excited for what he can do for the rest of the season, especially when you combine that with a block and 4 steals. Because I think even last year when we mentioned like Otega's stat line, those were always the stats that you and I looked at the most, was how much is he crashing the glass and how many times is he getting in passing lanes and, getting out in transition. And that's when he had his best games last year. And it's already proving to do that this year. So I think seeing that from him before what's going to be the biggest game of the season, just because it's the next one and it's one that's got the most pressure built up on it against IU on Saturday. I don't know what Otega could have done more against NC Central. Again, yes, it's NC Central. Get me excited for what he can do Saturday against IU.
Yeah, I thought, he just kind of built off of, again, that North Carolina game, but also just everything you've heard Pope kind of talk about how he's had his best practices and, he's really kind of being in the gym 3 times, in a single day. And he's really trying to, I think he is starting to develop into that leader role. Like, that was obviously something that was a little different for him, even though he was maybe the best player on the team a year ago. You had more vocal leaders in Amari and, Lamont, guys that kind of showed everybody how you're supposed to work, what you're supposed to do on the floor, all that kind of stuff. And Otega didn't really need that role playing with 4 other 5-year seniors, right? So I think for him to come into that, it maybe took some time, but I think he just really kind of showed you everything you would want to see from him to this point. Again, obviously, none of it matters if you come out and play bad again on Saturday, but the guys, it felt like there was maybe finally some leadership there. And then, I think Otega tried to have some of that leadership there in the post game and just talk about how this group all likes each other and, having everybody come over and celebrate when he's doing his post game interview. I think it was just some small steps in the right direction. Obviously, there's still a ways to go, and it was a 330 something net ranked team that you played, but at the end of the day, you took some steps in the right direction, and I think that's really all you could ask for Tuesday night.
Yeah, because we mentioned, and we obviously preface it by saying almost no stat that these guys could have put up would have had us feeling, great going into this IU game. But something that, is just not quantifiable is just the effort that was given on both ends of the floor. And I think you saw that from everybody except for one player who obviously you and I have questioned that effort going back to last season. So, let's go ahead. Let's have the Brandon Garrison conversation. We're here. Jake, I know you and I coming into the season, we're not expecting much from Brandon Garrison. When we talked about him in the preseason, what did we want him to do? We wanted him to get us to the part in the season where he could be the starting big, didn't have to rely on Malachi as much, and then get you in and wean you into the times where Jaden Quaintance is back. Dude, he couldn't even do that. And that was our expectations. I think a lot of people had bigger expectations for him as a former McDonald's All-American. Obviously, Pope says year 2 is when everybody takes their big jumps with us. To see him, first off, until that play, I thought Brandon was actually playing pretty solid. He had a nice finish and one down there. He had a nice spin out of a post up where he hit Yelovich for a 3. I thought he actually had looked fine up until that moment. Turns it over. First off, just a bad turnover. And then proceeds to get blown by and just doesn't even give you that effort or the time of day to try and even make a play. Pope obviously calls timeout, gets in his face. Tells him yells at him to go sit down. First off, I don't think we've seen Pope do that, just out in plain sight, out on the court. So to see that, see a little hand up accountability and Pope, take these guys at what they're doing. I think the BG experience, it's almost done, especially if you're getting Quaintance back here against St. John's or whoever.
It definitely feels like that. I go back to even last year, Cam. I think 99% of what I said with BG was always effort. I feel like every time we got on here and talked about games last year, I said, I don't care that, he's got his flaws on talent. Like, he should play at such a high motor that he should be grabbing rebounds and, playing hard on the defensive side of the ball at minimum. And even coming into this year, I still kind of thought the exact same thing. Like, it's all just going to be an effort. It's going to be a motor kind of thing. And, I wasn't somebody that thought he would take this huge leap and be this great starting center, but I thought if he gave you effort, he would be viable enough. And I even picked him again, hand up, going back to the Louisville game to be the MVP because I thought he would just come out and that would be a wake up call game for him and he would play with this high level of intensity. And it hasn't happened. And I think the fact that you're now 10 games in and you haven't even really seen a glimpse of it shows that it's just probably not going to happen. And it's unfortunate because I think if he was playing with good effort, he could give this team valuable 10, 15 minutes a game somewhere in there. But I mean, it's a total net negative to have him on the floor right now. And it was nice to see Pope kind of lay into him in that situation, I think. I mean, that play was just so bad. You alluded to it. The turnover was horrific. But, like, here's the thing. If he got back, you probably get a stop. Or, like, I don't even care if you go down and foul the guy, right? And have
At the
Pope yell
least
at
you
you.
can test as a big
Yes.
with a guard running down the floor, and you force a tough make at the least.
Yeah, or, like, even if you get a foul, Pope might still call the timeout and pull you out, but he's probably just being like, we can't make that play. You know that.
Mhm.
But guess what? He would have gotten back in the game. The fact that, it was pure effort, I think Pope was completely over it. And I think Pope sent quite a few messages on, Tuesday night. We'll talk about the other two guys that waited till 10 minutes to go in the game to get in. But I loved it. Like, you had to kind of send that message, I think. And BG was the number one guy we talked about that we didn't feel like was given proper effort so far this season. So to have him have that moment, Pope publicly kind of yell at him for it on full display, and then not put him back in. Also, part of me wonders, like, did BG not handle it the best way? Because, I mean, Pope was still absolutely livid in the post game. I mean, he didn't continue to, like, crush him or say it, but you could just tell by his demeanor. There were long pauses before he answered. You could tell he didn't want to say something that, he could slip up and say something that you probably shouldn't in a press conference. And he just kind of hit on, we have a standard here. We have expectations. You got to live up at least to the effort part of it. And, I don't know, maybe BG said something on the bench. Maybe it just fully was that mistake was so bad that he wasn't putting him back in. But I kind of thought maybe something kind of lingered over after it.
Yeah, and the crazy thing about like this whole experience with Brandon Garrison is right now you're legitimately only asking him for 10 to 15 minutes of effort. Like at what point, like if you can't give me that, like it's different if you see a guy who's playing 30 minutes, a game. He can't get back, being tired, something like that. But a guy who you're only getting in 10, 15 minutes, you've had your spot taken by a true freshman who you were supposed to be, light years ahead of when it comes to being ready for college basketball. When are you going to get ready? When are you going to get up? And I think Pope has started to see a lot of that. And then this was kind of just the straw that broke the camel's back. And he was just like, I'm done with it, especially in this game. And I think you mentioned the other two guys that he had to set an example of. This was one where he could do it on the court. And I feel like he managed to get that out there. And I think that's why you saw a lot of these guys play a lot harder throughout the entire game. Because I think we both know they could have won this game by 20, regardless of the effort that they gave out on the court. Obviously, I would like to have seen them win by, more than 36 like they did. But again, I mean, you're picking over small things. I think he set an example here with Brandon Garrison, and I don't know if there is recovery from it. I guess we'll see. I mean, obviously, you've mentioned it previously, like we're not in practice every day. I can't imagine the amount of things Brandon Garrison's going to have to do behind the scenes and on those practice floors that's going to be able to get him minutes going forward.
Yeah, it's going to be tough. And, we've always said, like, we were kind of wondering if his role would diminish. One thing that I do think is a pretty big positive from this is we talked not that long ago about, like, does Pope kind of have it in him to take one of his guys and, pretty much not play them? And I think you kind of saw that. I mean, even up to this game, he would constantly still kind of praise BG publicly, right?
Yeah.
We don't know what happened behind the scenes, but it wasn't that long ago he said BG was still our most, efficient
Yeah.
efficient player. And I think maybe part of that was just he was not trying to let him give up on himself. But I think it's all just kind of boiled over in these last 4 weeks here is it's finally reached that tipping point. And then you got the other two guys that, in Lowe and Cam Williams that didn't get in till 10 minutes left. I don't know what happened there. I don't think those were two guys we were necessarily crushing. I think even at times we've said, even though Lowe's hurt, he looks like he's the only kind of vocal leader for this team. So I don't know what happened behind the scenes. Jack Pilgrim said both of those guys were running the stairs Monday at practice, and then you get to the point where they're not even getting in the game besides a couple minutes halfway through the second half. I think Pope sent a lot of messages, and that was really, I think, what we were alluding to wanting to see Tuesday night.
Yeah, I mean, Jalen checked in with 14 minutes to go in the second half, and then Cam Williams followed him by checking in with 12 minutes to go in the second half. And, there for a while, like I was sitting there and I was thinking, I think I might have texted you. I was like, I don't know if this is like this Jalen, him not playing is an injury involvement because, we were playing NC Central. So I could understand them holding him out from this game. But obviously to see him come in with 14 minutes to go in the second half, there was obviously a statement being made. And that's something that, like, I don't think you and I have questioned Jalen's effort strictly because of the injury, and we haven't seen him on the court all that much. I feel like I've seen solid effort from Cam Williams. At least I haven't, that isn't a guy that I've been solely focused
on. Not glaring, yeah.
So, I mean, obviously they've seen something, or there's something in practice that they're not liking between those two, because you said they were running the stairs based on what Jack Pilgrim said. And, I mean, I think Jalen came in, looked pretty solid in this game, but we're still waiting on both of those guys to get going. We're going to get into it a little bit later. The thing I think I like the most about what Jalen can do, I think he opens the floor for Jasper Johnson, and I think you really saw that in the second half when Jasper started to take off. But when it comes to Cam Williams and him needing to – he's got to earn these minutes. I mean, you're at the point now where dude's shooting under 20% from three, and this is a guy he's actually getting open looks right now, which is the craziest thing. These aren't like Kobe Bryant's threes at the end of the year when he's got a hand in his face. These are good open looks that he's not knocking down. And at some point, I know we don't have a good three-point shooting team, but dude, if you're not giving us effort in practice, and if you're not able to knock down the three, we got to find somebody who can. And it looks like Pope decided that was Trent Noah, as obvious, by making him start in this game.
Yeah, and again, Trent Noah is another guy we've been pretty critical of, but I think if he can come in and just play that role, I think he could be perfect at that. And again, back to my point before the game, I don't care how good or bad certain guys or certain rotations on paper look. Just give me the five guys that are going to play the hardest. They're going to rebound. I mean, Trent Noah was all over the place that whole game, and that's a game where you probably could lollygag a little bit, right? You're playing NC Central in front of a not very excited Rupp Arena crowd. I mean, there were a lot of empty seats, and and it's understandable for that one to come out flat. But I just think Trent realized the opportunity that he has in front of him, and he came out and made the most of it. And back to the 3-point shooting, I'm good with playing whoever's going to give you effort and can knock down some open threes. And to this point, it hasn't been Cam Williams, and honestly hasn't even really been close. I mean, for a guy that shot near 40% last year or whatever it was, I don't understand it. Because to your point, a lot of them are wide open. I mean, especially in that North Carolina game, it felt like there were so many just good, clean, open looks, and we weren't even close on a lot of them.
Yeah, and I think I'm going to take a different route on Trent Noah than I think you are. And this is something that, don't get me wrong, I think this is just more me saying what I think Trent Noah's potential is. These are games when Trent Noah is going to get his stats. Especially with Trent, these are the games I don't need to see anything from Trent. I want to see the effort. He gives the effort constant. I know that's something that he's going to give. I need to see Trent do this in a game that is meaningful. I mean, so far this year, he just scored 11 against NC Central. He scored 16 against Tennessee Tech, and then 6 against Loyola Maryland, and 8 against Eastern Illinois. Against Michigan State, he had 0 points. Against North Carolina, he had 2, and 5 against Gonzaga. And he's not shooting well from the floor, and he's really not giving you rebounds in any of those games either. What I need to see from Trent is his ability to do it at the big stage against higher-level athletes. I think these are games these are where Trent's going to get his fans, and I understand that. But I try to look at this from a hierarching look. I still don't see Trent Noah being I don't want to say a non-beneficial to this team. I still don't want to see him getting more than anywhere from 10 to 12 minutes, even with how bad this season's gone, especially when we start to face these higher-level athletes, because he's still a liability on the defensive side of the floor. He's still not an athlete, which I texted you. I didn't know he could dunk. I'm going to be honest. I really didn't know that Trent could dunk. And I think you saw Colin's reaction on that. I don't know if Colin knew that either. I think it was just a spur of the moment. You saw him get up and dunk one. But Trent did play a good game. And if it's one thing that he is, I mean, just be that Ainsley Almanor corner three that if you're open, hit it. Because the way
Yeah.
that NC Central was playing defense, they left that corner three open and he hit them. So give him the credit there. But I don't look at this game as like a Trent Noah turning the corner. Hopefully I'm wrong and we can clip this for a little bit later. But I don't think I'm relying too much on Trent going forward.
Yeah, I mean, don't get me wrong. I'm by no means saying like Trent Noah's your savior or anything, and you talk about the issues on defense, and believe me, they're there. I agree with you completely. I just think for me right now, at this point, who on the defensive side of the ball has really played well,
Yeah.
and it could be effort based, it could be whatever. So I just think I know I've said it a million times. I'm probably going to continue to say it. Just give me 5 guys that are going to play hard. Yeah, because that Gonzaga game, there was zero effort from just about anybody on the floor outside of a couple guys here and there. So I just think, give me whoever's going to go out there and play hard. Again, if we look back and we just say that this team, unfortunately, is just flat out not good enough, and that's a very real possibility, then, I'm not going to be happy with it, but I can at least live with it and say, like, hey, Pope just messed up creating this roster, and this roster's just not good enough. And I'll give him another year to hopefully construct a better one for next year. But to have, 4 or 5 guys at a time on the floor that are giving you zero effort is completely inexcusable. So if you got to play Trent Noah because he's the only one out there trying to at least fight for some rebounds, then hey, so be it. But yeah, don't get me wrong. I'm no means saying that Trent Noah is going to be the savior. And I think if he is one of your best 5 players, you're unfortunately probably just not going to be a very good team. But at some point, you got to play the 5 guys, I think, that are going to at least go out there and fight and compete for you.
Yeah, and I kind of I fully agree with what you just said. I don't think I see that effort from Trent in those big games either. Like I see it in these games and I see him maybe it's just the stat padding that he gets in these games makes it look a little bit better. But I haven't seen that effort. I'm not saying he's not even in my top 2 worries about giving effort. Like he's not even a guy I'm thinking about when it comes to that sphere, but I've got to see him. I mean, just like we're going to mention with this entire team, got to see him do it against big competition. And
Yep.
Trent, I think, is at the top of the list for me when it comes to that. Where do you want to go next, Jake? We got a lot of different ways we can go here. I mean, we still really haven't like. Let's go ahead and have the Jalen Lowe conversation.
Yeah.
What are we expecting with Jalen Lowe? Because I still fully think that, I think you saw how much better Denzel Aberdeen looked when he was not running the point. I think him and Colin Chandler are very similar in that aspect. They're both not point guards. They have to play off the ball in order to be beneficial to this team. And I even think when Jasper Johnson was out there on the floor with Jalen, it made the floor open up so much more, and Jasper had driving lanes and cutting lanes to be able to get in there. I actually really loved him and Jalen on the floor at the same time. I'd actually like to see that going forward, but there's got to be something happening behind the scenes if he's not checking in until 14 minutes to go in the second half.
Yeah, I think a lot of our guys are going to be better with Jalen on the floor. So whatever happened, I think it's going to be really important that it doesn't happen again. Because to your point, I mean, we know what Colin looks like playing the point. We know how much better Denzel can look like off the ball. We know how much more comfortable now that Jasper can be not having to be the primary ball handler and make decisions. So I don't know. Have you seen anything? That was the one thing I didn't really see Pope address is what happened with him and Cam. Did he say like it's something internal? Did he address it at all? Or
I
I have
haven't
to
seen.
imagine someone asked him, but yeah, I didn't see anything about it.
He'll have a media day tomorrow before the Indiana game, so I'm sure somebody there will ask him. But as far as I've seen, he hasn't said anything regarding Jalen and or Cam Williams. But I mean, obviously, he came in with the intention to make a point about those two. So I think honestly, I think going into that game, Mark Pope was probably more frustrated with those two than he was Brandon Garrison, and Brandon Garrison just happened to do it during the game.
Yeah, I get it. And, maybe it wasn't even anything effort based. Maybe they were late for a meeting or something like that.
Yeah, there's so
So
many things that it could be. Yeah.
yeah. So I don't know, but I think as long as Jalen plays, I do think you see that this team can be obviously better than it's looked so far. I still do think he probably is the most important piece to this team just because, again, if he's out there, there's really like four guys that look better. You could say Jasper, Denzel, Colin, and Otega all look better. And just the fact that I think Jalen gives you stuff no one else can. I mean, again, he's not the greatest shooter in the world, but just his ability to get to any spot on the floor. You saw it in that Louisville game where he was, pretty well healthy. Again, I know he had some turnovers and mistakes at the end of the game, but you're not even relatively in that game if it's not for him creating some offense here and there to keep you alive. So yeah, hopefully it was something, silly, like they overslept for a practice or something, and this probably wasn't the time to do it because Pope's pretty on edge with the effort and everything. And, hopefully both of those guys have learned from it, whatever it was. And I do think Jalen's so important for this team.
Yeah, I think if you get Jalen just to be the Lamont Butler minus the defense, just that penetrating guy who can get out on the break and just open things up for other people. I think that's what you see. Like, that's what we're lacking so much. That's what last year's team lacked when Lamont wasn't on the floor. It's just that ability for somebody to get inside the paint and create for others. And even though, he only played 8 minutes in this game, he still had 2 assists in those 8 minutes. So, you're seeing the fact that he's able to get there and, make passes for others. And even when he doesn't necessarily get the assist, like there was a play where he got into the middle of the lane and then dished it out to Jasper, who then swung it over to Cam Williams. That's how Cam got his only bucket of the game. Just stuff like that to set the defense behind. Because right now, when we play in the half court, we're never at an advantage right now.
Yeah.
And the only way we're going to be able to get that, I think, is if Jalen does become that guy that he was at Pitt, which is a guy who can get into the lane, dice up a defense, get to his spot, and then make plays for others. Because I don't even think we necessarily – I know the offense has not been good. I don't think we even need him to be like the 15 points per game scorer that he was at Pitt. I think you genuinely just need him to help you create offense, whether that's with his own or help freeing up Denzel for threes, Colin for threes, Malachi dump-offs, like whatever it is. He just needs to be the reason this offense starts because I think he's going to be the engine for this team, and hopefully that injury is everything's good with that, and we can just keep him going. Because,
Yeah.
I hate to sound like Matt Jones here, but I do agree with him to a certain extent of with however good Jalen Lowe is, I think it really does help this team.
Oh yeah, and I think you saw that pretty easily in the Louisville game. I know we were watching that one together, and instantly he came in, and I think I was slapping you on the back like this is why he's so important. He comes in and just easy lobs to Malachi and just creating this offense. And he was out obviously a couple weeks after that, and the North Carolina Gonzaga game, was he fully healthy, still just trying to dip his toes back into it. But I do agree, like we've seen what this half court offense is without him.
It's
abysmal. It's the worst in the
even
sport.
Worse than last year's. I thought last year's half court offense was really bad without Lamont. This team, it's so much worse without the shooting. And you don't have that big like you did last year with Amari to create you buckets, even though we hope with Jaden coming back and Yelovich has shown it in spots. But is it weird? I was having this conversation with my dad before I came over here to do the podcast. Have you seen more like with Yelovich? When we came in this year, I was expecting to be like so fluid on the offensive end, and the defensive end is where he was going to give us the most struggles. I've almost seen it completely flipped, like a complete 180. I think he did play great defense against Caleb Wilson, and I feel like the offense necessarily hasn't been as fluid, even though he has shown little sparks throughout that time.
Yeah, definitely. I think everybody kind of had a similar expectation with him, is that he was going to be this good shooter, decent little offensive threat outside of the shooting. He was going to really struggle on the defensive side. I do kind of like him having the ball in the post a lot more than I thought. I think, I'm perfectly fine right now until JQ gets back, where he's your 5 when Malachi's out. And that's not really a role I thought he was going to be able to play. I thought he was just going to have to be like a stretch four, an Andrew Carr kind of level player. But I think he's shown that he can easily play the five. His post game is much more advanced than I thought. And I agree with you about the fact that, like, at times he's not very fluent. Like, we really saw it in Gonzaga, some really bad passes, not catching the ball a couple times. I don't know what the deal was
Just
at
kind of
Gonzaga. Yeah. I mean, I see it, but like, I do think also there's sometimes we see him make some really good passes and he makes some really good decisions with the ball. I like him a lot more as a post player than I think I would have ever anticipated coming into the year.
Yeah, and I'm there with you. And you need either him or Cam Williams to step up. Without obviously, we kind of expect the Abate to be back on Saturday, or at least
How
that's
about
what.
just one of them make a three? Can I get
That's
like one of them over under 1-3 the rest of the year?
I mean,
Because like,
right now, I mean, even with Yelovich going 2 for 4, he's only up to 23% shooting from three, and Cam Williams is at 19%. And those were two of your shooters coming into the year. Like those were the guys that
yes,
you thought were going to be big additions. You need one of them to step up and make those threes. I do think that I'll give Cam a little bit of a break. Now, granted, if he's not performing on the practice court, that might be a different. Maybe I won't give him that break. But I do think he's playing out of position. I do think he's got to play the three. But granted, we've also mentioned the looks that he's getting. It's not like these are contested looks. He's getting open looks and they're just not falling. I'm hoping really just one of these games he's going to go 3 for 4 and it's just going to spark a run for him. Like we've seen Trent Noah have a couple of these games where he goes 4 of 5 or 5 of 6. I think we need one of those games for Cam Williams, and then I think that'll start to get him going. But one of those two, especially if they're playing the 4 when JQ gets back to space out that floor, you need one of those two to be. I mean, I don't even want to say just a knockdown 3-point shooter. I think you need one of those
just a
two
threat.
just to shoot. I think I want to be more than a threat, honestly, because I think those are your two best shooters that are on the court. I like Colin Chandler, but I also love to see Colin Chandler getting downhill. I want Colin to provide a little bit more than just that 3-point threat. I think those guys, for them to be helpful on the offensive end of the ball with JQ coming back, they have to be knockdown 3-point shooters.
Yeah, I mean, don't get me wrong. I would love for him to be a knockdown 3-point shooter, but when you're shooting 19 and 20-something%,
Yeah,
let me just get you to near 30, and then we'll
30.
we'll try to expand from there.
Yeah,
But yeah, I do agree with you. The thing about Cam Williams, maybe he's playing out of position, whatever. I don't care what position you're playing and everything. When you get 4 or 5 open looks a game and you can't knock one down,
Mhm.
I can't really give you the benefit of the doubt of he's playing out of position. Those are clean open looks at the bare minimum, even if everything else isn't going right for you. If you're the shooter that you should be, you got to knock those down. And you mentioned the spark. You're waiting for one of those spark games from him. I really thought it was going to be that Louisville game. I mean, coming in with 11 minutes or whatever it was left, and he comes in and I mean, we haven't even seen him. I don't feel like we've seen him have that athleticism that you saw in the Louisville game. I mean, he had a huge putback dunk. He had a huge block. He played with so much energy, knocked down the three, and it never really carried over. And then when he got the first time he started, when Mo got hurt against, was that the Loyola game?
I think
don't
so.
really remember, but he came out in the first 10 minutes of that game, played with so much energy and knocked down a couple shots, and we were kind of all thinking all right, here it is. He's turning the corner, becoming that player we expect. And then he just another guy that just unfortunately never kind of capitalized on the opportunity of getting more minutes and getting into that starting role. And, we saw Trent do it this time. We'll see. Does that carry over to Indiana, or does he kind of fall back into the Trent that we've seen for the first 9 games? I probably lean towards he's going to fall back to that Trent we saw the first 9 games. But at some point, one of these guys that are getting all these minutes and starts because of injuries or because other guys aren't playing well and, Pope's benching them for whatever other effort reasons, at some point, one of those guys has to just grab that and hold on to it and say, I deserve to be out here. I'm going to play as hard and I'm going to execute.
Yeah, and to your point, I almost completely forgot about that Louisville game and how impressive Cam Williams was in those 12 minutes. I mean, 5 points, 4 boards, made a three. And
That
then,
block was insane, too. I don't know if you remember it because we obviously lost, but that was a crazy block.
yeah. And then he followed up with a good game against Eastern Illinois, shot 50% from three. And then you mentioned that Loyola game, 13 points, 9 rebounds. Like, you thought he was really turning that corner. And then the North Carolina game, 2 points in 16 minutes. The Gonzaga game, no points in 15 minutes, only gives you 2 rebounds, has 2 fouls and 2 turnovers. For whatever reason, these past 3 games specifically, after seeming like he was turning a corner, have just been, I mean, anything but desirable from Cam Williams. Hopefully, like that first game from Brandon Garrison after he got demoted from the starting lineup, he had that big bounce back game.
Yeah.
Hopefully after this one, this Indiana game, hopefully this is Cam Williams' bounce back game. That woke him up a little bit like, hey, I might be at Kentucky and, everything's good. The money's good. Everything is, but there's a goal to be had. There's still something that we need to achieve here. And he's a big part of that. And I feel like a lot of these guys we mentioned, like, as long as he goes, like, the team goes. And when you're talking about a team that might not have like that superstar, you need everybody on the team to buy in. Everybody has to play their role. And I think Cam Williams is a big part of that.
Yeah, and I think just like last year's example is a perfect example of what you were just saying, right? No true superstar. Otega at times could kind of look like one, but you had 5 guys that at all times really bought in. They played for each other. There wasn't a lot of selfishness on that team. There was just a lot of, hey, we're essentially lucky to be here, right? We were at Dayton. We were at San Diego State a year ago, Drexel. Like, now we're here and we're going to give it everything we have to kind of be a part of this. And I'm not going to say these guys don't care. You don't know what goes on in their everyday life. We don't know how deflated they feel when they lose and don't perform. But I do think by the effort that we've seen at times on the floor, it looks like they maybe don't all that much. And I think, again, somebody's got to just really kind of step up and take advantage of this role. Maybe it's Jasper, with some of these other guys getting less minutes because of whatever the reason is. Maybe he comes in and kind of takes advantage. We feel like up to this point, Malachi is really taking advantage of BG not being the guy at center, and he's coming in and making the most of his minutes. And obviously that'll kind of fade a little bit with JQ and Mo coming back. But like, just at some point, I keep saying it, but like, somebody's really just got to take advantage of the opportunity that they're given here.
Yeah, and we have a big opportunity on Saturday. I mean, that's for sure.
Yeah.
This is the first time we've played them since what, 20, like
since 12. No, since the Watford shot. Well,
yeah.
We beat them in the tournament that year.
Yeah,
and then we lost to them in the tournament. 16? But regular season, it's the first time since Calipari walked off that floor in Indy.
Yeah, and this, I mean, it's been a long time. Like, I barely remember the Indiana rivalry. I think that was a lot of before you and I were here.
I remember that game very well, watching it at my mom and dad's house. I remember I had 2 buddies over, and I remember the shot very well.
Yeah, I mean, I think that was actually like 2 days ago was the anniversary of that shot. It was.
Oh, I mean, how can they let you forget it? That's the highlight of Indiana basketball in the last 35 years.
And it's crazy. They don't ever mention that we sent them packing at the end of that game. It's crazy
and
how
not only sent them packing, we ran them off the floor.
Yeah,
I mean, AD wasn't letting that go, and not to mention the fact that they nearly killed Darius Miller after the game.
Yeah, that's that as well. But I mean, Jake, I think we've talked a lot about this NC Central game. Obviously, this game on Saturday is huge. It's massive. Like, this is probably, like, for Pope, this is probably his biggest game so far, like, of his career, outside of, the tournament games, because you need to win those.
It might be up there with the last year's tournament.
Yeah, and this is as big of a must-win as you're going to have in non-conference play in December. Because obviously you got the storylines of the guys not playing hard, and now you've got a guy who, for a good amount of time while he was in the transfer portal, you thought he was going to be a Kentucky Wildcat. He goes to Keeneland. He goes to a sacred Like Jake, let's talk about this. He goes to a sacred place
I'll
with
let you
Coach,
talk about it.
goes to Keeneland, and then decides to let me go to Bloomington, Indiana. Dude,
I mean,
first off, as a guy who's lived in Indiana for a couple of years, Terre Haute, Indiana, I love you. Bloomington, Indiana is terrible. I mean, it sucks. No, even people that are from Bloomington don't like Bloomington. IU sucks. The whole thing stinks. But that being said, how much would you love to have Lamar Wilkerson on this team right now?
oh, he'd be just so good watching him make 10 of 15 threes. I mean, I don't think our whole team could collectively do that. So,
Yeah. And the only guy that we have shooting better on three than him so far this season, you have Trent Noah, and then obviously the one-for-one sniper, Zach Tao. I mean, 3 for 3. I mean, who? Zach Tao. I'm taking him in a three-point contest. I think we all know that. But
I mean,
we
maybe
mentioned,
we got to get him some more time out there.
I mean,
Get somebody to knock down some
if he's
shots.
got that spot up corner three, if he's going to hit it, I'm down to play anybody out there. But yeah, I mean, let's go ahead and let's talk about this Indiana team because it's a good team. They've got 2 losses so far this year, one to Minnesota and obviously one to Louisville.
2 straight.
Yep, 2 straight. But I mean, they bounced back big time against Penn State, beat them handily. Obviously, Lamar Wilkerson had 44. You mentioned he made 10 threes, which set an IU record. He's now shooting 43% from three on the season. And they currently have 3 guys that are shooting over 40% from three, including Tucker DeVries and Nick Dorn. This is going to be a challenge for us defensively. What do you think we need to do to come out with a win in Lexington?
Oh, I think it's pretty simple. I think you just kind of set it up on a tee right there. You got to find a way to defend the three. And however that looks, whatever you got to do, whether it's, maybe send some double teams at these shooters occasionally. You can't go under a single screen Saturday. If I see that,
we rushed a lot of them against NC Central. I think in preparation for this game, I think we were trying to do something like that. And I'm glad you mentioned that because we didn't get to mention it during the game. But they rushed a lot of those screens, and I think that was them planning for Wilkerson coming off of those.
Yeah, and you're going to have to. I think you got to have kind of a attack mindset on the defensive side of we're going to play aggressive. We're not going under anything. We're going to attack you. If we pick up some fouls fighting through screens, so be it. But I think you have to do everything you can to try to run them off that 3-point line. I mean, to be honest, I watched them play Louisville. They never really threatened Louisville. I know I've said I also watched them play Kansas State at IU, and they felt like killed them, but I think everybody's kind of killing Kansas State. But, real quick, I'll let you kind of dive into what you think the keys are, but back to your point of this being the biggest non-conference game, I truly think it is. I still believe this team makes the tournament, but if you lose Saturday, I think I'm pretty much going to chalk it up as this is an NIT team just because you got to win one of these games at some point. We've said it a million times. This one's at home. They're probably the worst of the Power 4 teams you played so far. But, I mean, they're still good and they're still a threat, and they can obviously still beat you if you don't come out and play hard and execute. And there is a world where, again, Wilkerson and a couple of those guys get hot and they shoot you out of the gym. But I just think you got to play so aggressively defensively that you say, beat us with twos. We're not letting you kill us from behind the arc.
I think you have to do exactly what you didn't do against Louisville. Like, you just can't let 2 guys beat you. In that Louisville game, you let Mikal Brown and Ryan Conwell beat you. Like, they were the reason you lost that game. This game, you can't let Tucker DeVries and Lamar Wilkerson. Like, you can't let both of those guys get their numbers. One of them, all right, that's fine. We'll live with it. Force somebody else to beat you outside of those 2. I mean, both of them are 50th year seniors. They both have their AARP cards, just like you and I do, Jake. You just have to get one of those guys off their spot because DeVries is shooting 40% from three, and Lamar Wilkerson shooting 43% from three. So they have the ability to knock down jump shots. Just have to force them off their spot, make them work harder for it. Like, this is a game that Otega Owe, like, if you want to show me like you're back, and this is a game where like you put the team on your back, not on the offense side of the ball, defensively, because he's going to be caught in a lot of those switches between Wilkerson and DeVries. He can kind of guard both guys with the height and length that he has. He has to be big in this game. And I'm talking about strictly defensively. And then when we go to the offensive side of the ball, I think Jalen's got to be good. I think he's got to have like 6+ assists in this game. He's just got to really just set the table for a lot of the guys to hopefully knock down shots. And you mentioned how big this game is. Like, you have to start stacking wins together at some point. And you have to see, it's like just going out to a gym. Like, you got to see one fall. Like this is where this team's at. You have to see one fall. And don't get me wrong, I don't think a win against IU is going to have all of Big Blue Nation like back in. Like you mentioned, you're just talking about them winning this game to get back into the tournament. But if you lose this game, the sky's falling. Like, the sky's falling, and they're like, the sky's already been falling. But if you lose this one against IU, who's been a bad program for 2 decades now, man, the alarm bells really start to sound, and we're just talking about roster construction for the rest of the year. Then we're talking about next year, like JMI. We start talking about all these auxiliary things that we don't want to talk about. We want to talk about the play on the court. You have to get a win on Saturday, and I really don't think it's a negotiable. I don't know. I don't know. I was gonna let you.
You always make me go first, and then you say I steal your score. So,
well, yeah.
Floor is yours, Mr. Johnson.
As the lead host, Jake, you know my favorite player of all time, Rajon Rondo. I always set the table for others. I go play some great defense. I set the table, and when I have open shots, I knock them down. I go play in transition. This is what I do. Right now, I'm setting the table.
I just kicked it to you in the corner, wide open. So
it wasn't open. I was very heavily contested. This is a very loaded question. I genuinely don't know. I go back and forth on this. I really did like what I saw, and not even necessarily from how they played against NC Central, because I genuinely don't think they played that well. I just love the accountability that was had in this game. Like, I love the answer that Pope had. Like, this is a side of him that we haven't seen. You mentioned, can he do this? Can he look a kid in the eyes that he promised, however many minutes, like, you're going to be the big for this team, and can he sit him if he doesn't deserve those minutes? He did it on Tuesday. I mean, that has me feeling a lot better about what he can do and what the staff can do. So I think they're finally, like, hopefully, they needed to get to that 10-game stats, like the analytics. They needed to get to 10 games, and that's their data points, and they've seen enough from Brandon Garrison to sit them down. I'm still going to kick it to you because I don't know.
No, feet to the fire. I'm not making a prediction until you do.
Man, I'm trying to filibuster here, and you're just not letting me do it.
All right, I'll make 1 point here before you give your prediction. I'm not making my prediction until you do. But that's where we are here on this podcast. I will say, back to the Brandon Garrison thing quickly. I know we mentioned Pope after the game, and you could tell how frustrated he was. Just the fact he did it in that moment, knowing that all the cameras were on him, I think it just shows just how frustrated, obviously, he's been. I think it's primarily with Garrison, but I think it was just a team thing, and everything boiled over into that moment. Because, again, I'm not one of these people that don't think Pope holds these players accountable. Everybody kind of talks about that online. Mm-hmm. I think he does. I think just his style is much more behind the scenes, and he doesn't ever want to publicly shame any of these guys. But the fact that he did it in that moment on Tuesday night showed me that he's over it, and hopefully I think it sent shockwaves probably through to the rest of the guys, because, again, BG's a guy he's talked about positively for 2 years now, overly positive a lot of the times, and I think they said if he's going to do that to him, there's zero reason he won't do it to me. But now back to you, Mr. Johnson. The floor is yours. Where are we going here?
Yeah. Let's see. This is the thing, Jake. I do think that the Cats win this game. I really do. I think there's too much at stake for this Kentucky team. I don't think that this Indiana team has as much at stake at home. Like you saw when IU did play on the road, they played Minnesota, and I mean, genuinely, they looked terrible. And that's really been their only test outside of Bloomington, and they did not look good at all. They really couldn't score the ball well. I think this team's woken up. Like, I'm not saying this is going to be a great team by any means, but I think when you do look at somebody like BG and you sit him down, this guy is whether you thought he was going to be good or not, he was supposed to be the leader of that front court. Like
Yep.
that's what he was supposed to be. He was the leader. He was the returner guy. It was supposed to be his position to lose. And the fact that you looked at him and you sat him down, I think will light a spark in some of these other guys. You obviously did it to Jalen Lowe and Cam Williams as well. I think accountability is being had in that locker room. And I think guys are starting to hold each other accountable. And I think a lot of that is a long way of me trying to figure out the score that I'm giving here, Jake. I don't know if you can tell or not. But I think this is going
I'm
to be
getting
a
there.
game that I think Kentucky just barely squeaks into the 80s, and that's going to be enough to get them a win here. I'm going to say they win by 6. Give me 82-76 Cats.
I like it. Now, part of the reason I made you go first is because I was right there with you, and I was going back and forth on
I know. I know.
what prediction I wanted to give. But by God, at some point you got to be a leader, Cam. We're asking these Kentucky players to be a leader. At some point, you have to be a leader out there as well, and step up and do it. I feel so weird about this game because this is a game. I think you kind of just hit it where you're like, they're going to feel the pressure, and at some point, like, their back's against the wall, and they're going to do it. But, like, I truly thought that would be the North Carolina game. 9:30 at night, the place is rocking, all this stuff's going on.
I didn't have that feeling in that North Carolina.
I really did. And now, like, this one is just got me so much more worried because there is if you lose, what you're going to have at stake. But I almost think, like, I think Kentucky wins just because at some point they got to win one of these. Like there's even our bad teams that maybe even miss the tournament find a way to get a couple big wins. And like, this Indiana team, I don't know where this will finish being at home. If you do win, is it a quad 1 win? Will it be a quad 2? I'm not really sure, but I just think this program desperately needs a big win. Everything that kind of led up to it Tuesday night, I think, lights a fire under these guys, and they come out and they play hard at the bare minimum. And I'll say Kentucky wins. I like us just under 80. I'll go 78-74.
Yeah, the one thing I kind of wanted to touch on that you had mentioned there, this is the first time, and now granted, I might just be reading into a lot of this lip service and the accountability that's been had, on the court and with Cam and Jalen not playing until the second half. This is the first time I felt like the vibes are a little different. Like there
Yeah.
was
I
a
agree.
little extra motivation. There was a little extra why to why these guys were doing it. And granted, I might be reading way too much into an NC Central game and the vibes from that game. But I didn't get that after the North Carolina game. I didn't really get that even after the Gonzaga game. Like this is the first time I've gotten the vibes of like things are starting to change and turn for the better. That's the first time I think I've gotten it. You mentioned you thought they might have had it before or after the North Carolina game.
Well,
Personally didn't see that. And I'm
I'll
hoping that
clarify.
this
I didn't necessarily mean vibes. I just meant like your back was against the wall and you were like, this kind of has to be the one you're going to do. And we talked about all the reasons why that game was so disappointing, but in part it was the crowd. It was Carolina rolling in on a Tuesday night at 9:30, and you're introducing Will Steins, and the place is going insane, and you got all this stuff, and then they still kind of came out flat. But I do kind of agree with you. It's hard to say like vibes would be any type of positivity after what we saw last Friday, but I do feel like they're creeping back towards being good. I'm not going to say they're great, but I feel like you got one foot in front of the other for the first time.
Yeah, and I mean, let's also talk about it this way. Like you mentioned, the North Carolina game being at 9:30. This is going to be a sold-out Rupp Arena at 7:30 on a Saturday with Dick Vitale and Charles Barkley calling the game. Like
Yep.
this is a game, and you mentioned the back against the wall. If it wasn't against the wall against North Carolina, it's against the wall now against Indiana. This is a rival. It's obviously going to be nationally televised, sold out crowd. You're going to have alumni in the stands that are there. You got two Hall of Famers calling the game. If we can't get up for this game and can't put out a good effort at the least, I think you can just chalk it up for this team.
I agree. I think we'll know if this team's still got a chance to turn the season around and make the tournament and go on whatever sort of run you think their potential is. If you lose, I agree with you. The sky's falling and this whole season's probably off the rails and probably I don't want to say unsalvageable, but you're really tinkering on it being unsalvageable if you lose Saturday.
Yeah, well, I mean, let's also just like say it like this. Like, let's say you get this win on Saturday, and then you have a full week to prepare for St. John's. You might be getting Jaden Quaintance back for that game. You just
You got some good vibes.
start to get the ball rolling. You start to get that
Yeah.
snowball rolling downhill, and then you can just, one thing leads to another. You have
Maybe Rick throws you a bone, throws
yeah,
Pope a bone, and it's like,
you get
you need
four.
this one a little more than I do.
Yeah, you get 4 wins in a row, and then you go into SEC play, which sucks that you're starting with Alabama, but then you get Missouri, Mississippi State, and LSU. You're talking about rattling off potentially 3 wins in a row there, and you can really start to get these vibes in Lexington turned around, start to get some positive momentum, and just start winning games. But it all starts on Saturday.
Yeah.
Jake,
I
we'll
gotta
know
say,
so much more PM on Saturday.
we're weeks away, but you already got me so bummed out for that Alabama game. I'm gonna be honest.
Yeah, sorry about that. I didn't mean to bum you out. I was trying to use it as like a let's get some positive stepping stones here, but sounds like you only heard my negativity in that one.
Yeah, I don't want to think about going to Alabama right now. I think there's a real world the football team's got a better chance to go win at Alabama.
Oh boy, it's not, the vibes are high with the football team though, so maybe
It's true.
that'll transition over to us. Jake, you got anything else before we take down these goofy pajama wearing clowns down there in Bloomington?
Let's just get some good momentum, man. Like at some point, I need something to feel good about, and beating IU Saturday would be a huge step in the right direction. And I don't care how the rest of the season's gone. I'm gonna be very excited, and if we win, I'll probably get on here next Monday or Tuesday whenever we record, and I'll tell you that this team's going to go to the Final Four. So let's start walking towards that.
We learned this during the football season. We're prisoner of the moment, and that's what's going to happen. Like right
I'm
now,
the king of it.
vibes are the lowest that they can be for Kentucky basketball. You win on Saturday, and imagine if they win it in like convincing fashion. Like they just like go out there and they actually just like fully handle business. Then we're talking about, okay, we have a full week until St. John's, and then you could positive momentum. You've got to put one foot in front of the other. It starts by taking care of the Hoosiers on Saturday.
Let's do it. Let's go.
Right there with you. Jake, we've given the fans here about an hour of great basketball content here. Hopefully, when we come in on Monday or Tuesday, we've got even better content for them because the Cats have beaten the Hoosiers. But, as someone who spent a lot of time in Kentucky and Indiana, I can say there's some good things in Indiana, some not so good things. But I do want to give a little bit of a shout out to both of my grandparents. Both of them are going through a little bit of a tough time. Just wanted to say that, they both have my prayers. My grandfather's currently in Indianapolis, so he's about an hour outside of Bloomington getting some treatment done. Prayers for him. And grandma just went through hip surgery. Jake, they are going through it, but prayers to both of them. I know Big Blue Nation will have their back by getting the win here. They're not IU fans. They're not Kentucky fans either, but we'll get them. We're getting them. They look at Kentucky games more than they look at anything around there. We're getting them on Big Blue Nation's side. I'll have them sign a piece of paper, officially introducing them into Big Blue Nation here after the win on Saturday. Follow us, the Cats Talk podcast. We got you covered. Obviously, we got a football podcast coming up here for you soon. As Jake, we finally got the offensive coordinator and defensive coordinator figured out for Will Stein's first staff. And we'll have a post-game reaction for you. Kentucky, Indiana. The rivalry has been renewed. Hopefully the Cats can take home the first one since the rivalry's been renewed. Follow us on Instagram, on X, on TikTok. We're on YouTube, Spotify, Amazon Music, and iHeartRadio. Wherever you get your podcast, Jake, we are there. Follow us anywhere and everywhere. And let's take care of these dirty Hoosiers on Saturday. Go Cats.
Go Cats.